I'm in favor of busing. One chief reason for that is that I find myself in direct opposition to the enemies of busing. I know who the enemies of busing are and why they are enemies of busing. I have no illusions, however, that busing is going to solve the educational problems. I don't expect it to. Let us achieve use busing wherever it is likely to improve the quality of the schools, quality of education.
Who are the people who are in favor of busing that you're against?
No. I'm not people who are in favor of busing. People who are opposed
who are
to
against
busing.
it.
Well, many people who are opposed to busing all over the country, who say they're opposed to busing, are really opposed to integration and not busing. And many parts of the South, and I'm a Southerner myself, I was born in Mississippi and raised in Mississippi, Georgia, and Texas. And I know that there's been busing as long as I've lived. You know, kids have been bused, black kids have been bused for many, many miles to get to an all-black school. And white kids have been bused for many, many miles, too, to get to an all-white school. Nobody was opposed to busing in those years. It was only when some court said we must use busing to eliminate segregation. It was then that people became opposed to busing. My conclusion from those facts is that what they're really opposed to is not busing, but desegregation of the schools.
So you feel these people are using it as a ploy?
Yes, many of them are. It has become a code word. Now, this is true not only in the South, but all over the country. Let me qualify that a bit. It's not true of all persons. There are some people who are legitimately opposed to busing, and I can understand their opposition if a parent has a small child about to go to first grade. I can understand the parents' fear of that child going a long distance by bus to first grade or second grade and so on. But in most cases, the busing is not long distance, the busing that has been proposed for schools. In most cases, it is not long distance, and in most cases, it is not the very young children.
You said that you were in favor of busing because you were opposed to some of the people who were opposed to it.
That's right.
Now, what about the merits of busing itself?
Well, I tried to speak to that. I think that there are some cases when busing can improve the quality of education. I think that each case has to be considered on its own merits. I would be loath to make a blanket support for busing, to use it any place under any circumstances, because I don't think that would make sense. Certain cases, busing is the solution to the problem, a solution to the problem. In other cases, it is not. In some cases, rather than busing, we ought to use what is called educational parks. If you're familiar with the educational parks concept. Other cases, the so-called Princeton plan would be more effective than busing. That is twin school concept. And in other cases, other situations, site selection for the building of new schools could be a help toward integration. In other cases, nothing but busing could conceivably work. Now, I'm not in favor of long-distance busing. I would want to set a limit on the distance, or rather the time that it takes. The idea being that the transportation is not the major point. The major point is what happens after the bus ride, you know. And so if the transportation is going to take too much time out of school, then transportation is not worth it. Yes, I had a debate with Dr. Shockley in Nashville, Tennessee, in a television studio. It was a 3-hour debate, actually a 2-hour debate with a 1-hour question period from the audience. And the audience was about 50 invited people, most of them faculty members at the colleges and universities in Tennessee. Well, you know, Shockley's general point of view is that blacks are innately inferior to whites. Now, this is not new. It's as old as the hills. It's that hoary old cheese that he dug up. Every century, someone has come up with that nonsense, in spite of the fact that the scientists, the American Anthropological Association, for instance, has year after year refuted that there's absolutely no scientific basis for such a claim. But be that as it may, Shockley is earning a lot of money out of that. going around telling people what they want to hear, in essence. And he says that it is genetic. The difference is genetic. And he bases his argument upon IQ test scores. That black children don't do as well on IQ test scores as white children do.
And there's been some headlines saying that the governor of this state, George Wallace, has changed his racial stand, and that he needs black support. Will your organization, the ADC, endorse George Wallace in this gubernatorial race?
First of all, we'll have a committee to screen all candidates. All candidates will have the opportunity to come before the commission for our committee. And of course, our committee will exercise its own judgment as to who will endorse. However, I do think Governor Wallace has a heavy burden of proof to carry to show black folks why they should endorse him. He's been in power for 12 years. He's never done anything for black people. Out of 768 persons on committees, only 3 blacks. And when Albert Brewer appointed 2 blacks to the committee, the first thing George Wallace did was to fire those 2. And so, in my opinion, that he has a burden of proof.
He did fire those 2 when he came back in the office?
Yes, he came back in the office. He moved Mr. Robert Nesbitt and moved Mr. Willis from Birmingham, from the Commission of Higher Education and Alabama Study Commission. So, you know, it'll be very difficult, almost I guess impossible for him to explain how and why he did this, and the facts are he did. So he'd have a heavy burden of proof to carry to show black folk why they should support him. After all, he built his career against black people. Everyone knows that. And so this is a question that I have to raise. I have not seen the headlines that say that blacks are going to support him.
No, I did not say that there were headlines. I said that there had been some headlines that the governor had changed his racial stance and that he had made some comments in campaign speeches that he was misunderstood in his racial stand.
Yes.
And what I'm asking you is you say it's almost impossible. Several years ago, you would have said that it was impossible, but now you're saying it's almost impossible. How much of a possibility is it that George Wallace would be endorsed by the ADC?
Well, let me say this. If I'm hearing at all that Governor Wallace is going to be endorsed, let me clear that right now. I can't say what's impossible. No man knows what's impossible. It's very improbable that he will be. And of course, what I meant by someone said he's changed, the governor said he hasn't changed. I'm going to take him at his own word. The governor said, I haven't changed. It's the other folks who've changed. Well, let's put it another way. The ADC hasn't changed. So there we are. He said he hasn't changed. So I'm going to take him at his own word.
Well, I imagine he's probably moderated his rhetoric a great deal, but whether he's moderated his opinions or not is something, I guess, between him and his conscience. I can remember in his first attempt to be governor of this state when he was defeated and came back to a local political hotel here and said, boys, they've out-niggered me, but I'll never be out-niggered again. And he never has been again. So I don't believe it's possible for the leopard to change his spots or for the Ethiopian to change his skin. The callous castrators moved with cold calculation to kill, freeze, and wind down urban renewal, model cities, community action, public service employment, student loans, public housing, federal impact funds for education, and to impose a 60% national pullback in social services. In this administration in Washington, human problems are placed on a balance sheet and forced to add up. The new administrators appointed by the president run the programs they direct with all the kindness of a hungry mortician
at an old folks' home. A president who harbors conspirators to his bosom readily agrees to conspire to deprive the war-wounded of relief, the welfare-ridden of minimal affluence, the aged of simple security. But if the people of this country who work for their living and who do not live on the wages of others, the mothers who want schooling and care, not warehousing for their children, the fathers who want work at a decent and protected wage, the veterans who want medical treatment, the workers who want maximum minimums, if all these people can be made to see their common interest, then the tide can turn. That means developing an issue-oriented electorate. That means that those of you who believe in clean water ought not vote for a man with a dirty heart. If your candidate is right on rivers but wrong on welfare, you must make him right on welfare too. Now, building such a movement is an old and rather faded dream. Its chances of success have never been easy. Its difficulties have always been immense, but its necessity has never been greater. It will take hard work to educate voters, to educate them to their interest, and to turn them out on election day.
To me, that we ought to have said we want so many dollars for technical school, so many dollars for vocational school, so many dollars for junior college.